welcome to another episode of the Chaos Chronicles.
Navigating the randomness.
I'm Jess.
I'm Connie.
And we are back for another more normal Who Knows What Wednesday.
Normal is such a relative term for us now.
True crimey.
There we go. Before we get too deep into anything, just a reminder, you can find us on all of our social medias. They are linked in the description below. We would very much appreciate a like, subscribe, and follow. If you hit the notification bell, you can be alerted to when our other Who Knows What Wednesday episodes come out, as well as our Saturday book reviews. Right now, we are in the throes of the final Twilight book, Breaking Dawn.
We're getting there.
We're almost done. It's an adventure.
We are dedicated at this point.
Yeah, we're not doing this because we have love of the books. We're doing this because, dang it, we like to finish what we start.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So, getting into this week's episode, trigger warnings. We have domestic violence and very brief, nondescript animal abuse.
Okay.
Yep. So this is actually going to end up being a multi-part episode. I don't know how many parts it will be. I am not officially done researching it. Basically, I found the prosecutor's summary of the evidence, and it is very, very long. So this part is going to be an overview of the Green River Killer.
I recognize the name, but I think I'm recognizing it from reference in a Criminal Minds episode.
This person has definitely been used in stuff like that a lot. We're not really surprised. But if I told you his name right now, you would immediately know who it was. So we're just going to start.
Oh,
and
okay.
You will find out who in a second.
Okay.
Ruby. Ruby, come here. Come lay down. You can either hop up or on your bed. Either way, lay down. Yep, you can hop up. Hop up. Lay down. Okay. All right, so starting in July of 1982, 16-year-old Wendy Lee Caulfield, Coffield, was found dead floating in the Green River in King County, Washington. She was found to have been strangled to death with her own panties and tossed into the river. There wasn't much for evidence, and her murder went unsolved. Her killer was named the Green River Killer. From July to August of 1982, 4 more women were found strangled and left in or near the Green River. All 5 women were prostitutes, and at least 4 of them went missing from the Pacific Highway South, also known as PHS, which was a well-known area for prostitution activity.
This is all sounding vaguely familiar.
More years passed and more victims were discovered. Most women found were teenage girls who were without clothing and no possessions. There were eventually 49 victims listed to be victims of the Green River Killer. A separate task force was created from the King County Sheriff's Office to cover the Green River Killer. This task force grew as more bodies were discovered. Most of the killings took place between 1982 and 1984. So a 2-year period was the big points.
Are we starting it again? Okay.
The task force used most recent forensic science advances. They sent evidence with each victim for DNA typing, but they weren't able to obtain anything. Over the next few years, budget demands led to a decrease of numbers in the task force, and in 1992, only 1 detective remained, and that was Tom Jensen. In 2001, he decided to try new developments in DNA typing and sent evidence from several victims to Washington State Patrol Crime Laboratory, and they found a match. Are you ready for the name?
Is it Bundy?
It is not Bundy.
Oh, Geen?
No, it is Gary Ridgway.
Here, wait. I know that name. We did an episode.
We talked about doing an episode on him, but we have not done an episode on him. We've referenced him in other episodes. I don't remember. It might have been Bundy's episode. I think it was Bundy's episode.
Okay, I'm trying to remember the stuff about Ridgway. I'm not recalling all of it at the moment, but I'm sure I'll be prompted.
I believe, don't quote me, he is the second. He's not the person in the US that has the most amount of people that he's killed, but he's the second one.
We have a list.
We have a list.
We have a list.
Uh-huh. So, Gary Ridgway. Are you ready to learn a little bit about Gary Ridgway?
Let us hear.
All right. So, he was born on February 18th, 1949 in Salt Lake City, Utah, to Mary and Thomas Ridgway. He had two brothers, one older and one younger. Thomas, Gary's father, worked as a bus driver, and it is said that his father would often complain of the sex workers who were around in the area. His mother was a sales clerk at JCPenney, and it was said that his mother was domineering, and Gary witnessed violent arguments between his parents. The three sons would also receive punishments from their mother with belts or sticks for supposed minor offenses. Gary's older brother was the favorite or the most accomplished sibling. He majored in physics and ran for student office. In 1960, the Ridgway family moved to SeaTac, Washington. Gary struggled in school and ended up being held back 2 grades in high school. He had dyslexia, and his IQ was in the low 80s. It was 82 is what my sources said. And if you guys, we have talked about the IQ levels before. This is classified as low average, which is, it's like 80 is the cutoff too. So of that range, it's the very bottom. He had genuinely cried when he expressed his concerns about being put on a, quote, short bus. Classmates would say that he never had any trouble getting a date or even a girlfriend, though. While in his teens, Gary showed signs of sociopathy. He committed arson. He wet the bed until 13 years old. And he tortured animals and even killed a cat by trapping it in a freezer.
Oh, God, that is the worst trifecta.
Mm-hmm.
Bedwetting, arson, animal abuse.
Yep. And that is the extent of the animal abuse that we will be talking about. Like I said, it's very short, nondescript.
Yeah.
It's not great, but brief. When Gary was 16, he also led a 6-year-old boy into the woods and stabbed him in the ribs, and it went through his liver. The child survived and stated that Gary walked away from him laughing after stabbing him. Gary graduated high school in 1969 at age 20 and married his girlfriend at the time, Claudia Barrows. Shortly after, Gary joined the Navy and was sent to Vietnam and saw combat. While in the military, Gary would frequently have interactions with prostitutes. While he was away, Claudia started dating, and they're married at this point. They're still married. His first marriage ended within a year.
See how there could be some problems there.
Yeah, just a couple. In 1973, Gary married Marcia Winslow, and they had a son together. During this marriage, Gary became very religious and would go door to door trying to convert others to his religion. He would also read the Bible out loud at work and home, and he insisted Marcia follow strict preachings. Gary also at this time wanted Marcia to have sex with him outdoors and in inappropriate places and would insist on having sex several times a day. Also during this time, he continued to pay prostitutes. Raises a couple red flags.
There's a few inconsistencies there too, but okay.
In the late 70s, Marcia got a gastric bypass, and after losing a bunch of weight, she started catching the eyes of men. So she was very attractive, supposedly, after losing weight, is how it was documented.
I feel like this is gonna cause problems.
So Gary became very jealous.
Yeah, there it is.
And the couple started fighting. Gary had an interesting relationship with his mother, even in his adulthood. It's not going where you think it's going, to my knowledge of my research thus far. Basically, Mary would control their spending and would make final decisions on purchases. She even went as far as even buying Gary's clothing for him.
I don't know what happened to my red flag, so I'm just gonna wave my red arm.
Bear tossed yours down.
What?
Yeah, right?
No.
Little weird.
Little. Very.
And Mary accused Marcia of not taking care of Gary. And Gary never defended Marcia and left her to deal with Mary by herself.
This is feeling like, you ever see those Reddit stories where they're like, AITH, like, am I the a-hole?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, oh, my wife is leaving me, but it's because I have a close relationship with my mom, and blah, blah. Like, that is what this is feeling like.
I'd be...
No, if I was back in the dating pool, thank God I am not. If I saw a man who was still being taken care of to this extent by his mother or father, really anyone, I'd be like, look, I'm not looking to enter a relationship with someone who just wants me to be their mother or will never measure up to their mother. I'm running in the opposite direction.
Same.
No. There's receiving help from your parents, and then there's this.
No.
No gracias. No thank you.
Yeah. Marcia and Gary were married for 7 years.
She put up with that for 7 years?
And Marcia later claimed that during one of their fights, Gary placed her in a chokehold.
Okay.
Gary went on to date several women, and in 1985, he met his third wife, Judith Mawson, Mawson, and they married in June of 1988. Judith described Gary as gentle, responsible, a structured man, and the perfect mate.
Is this the same Gary?
Apparently. Yeah.
Okay.
Before she moved in with Gary, he updated the house and even replaced the carpet. Judith also liked how helpful Mary was and was grateful that she helped Gary handle things that were difficult for him, and Judith eventually took over the responsibilities when Mary started aging and not able to do it.
I have so many questions.
Me too. In 1983, Gary actually grabbed the attention of the Green River Killer Task Force. A man had reported that Gary's truck looked similar to the one that he had saw that had last seen a girl who disappeared. Gary denied picking up that girl, and since there was no evidence, the case stalled. Gary came up several times as a potential suspect for the Green River Killer, and the task force interviewed him multiple times, and he was usually cooperative. In these interviews, he would admit to dating prostitutes and admitted to assaulting one, but claiming that he did it because she bit him. The task force administered a polygraph examination where Gary denied killing any of the women, and he ended up passing that. On April 8th, 1987, the task force searched his house, work locker, and several vehicles on a search warrant. Detectives took hundreds of items in for evidence like carpet fibers, ropes, paint samples, and plastic tarps. They took these to the Washington State Patrol Crime Laboratory and compared them to the victims. None of the evidence could link Gary with any scene or victim. There was one item that did become significant, a saliva sample from Gary that was part of the warrant. So in 2001, when the evidence was submitted, they were able to find a partial male DNA profile from a vaginal swab, and it was consistent with Gary's profile. After finding this, several other victims were tested and analyzed, and Gary's DNA was also a match to them. The King County Sheriff's Office prepared to arrest him by putting together a multi-agency task force called the Green River Homicides investigation and prepared the case against Gary and review the remaining unsolved murders that they were also linking to be the Green River Killer. On November 16th, 2001, Gary went back to PHS, that area, and attempted to pick up an undercover King County Sheriff's officer who was posing as a prostitute. Gary had asked her if she was dating and had agreed to meet her down the road. He was arrested and released later that day. During the booking, Gary requested them to not contact his wife and then stated, quote, "You can contact the Green River Task Force. They know me real well," end quote. 2 weeks later, Gary was arrested for murder. In December, Gary was charged with 4 counts of aggravated murder in the first degree for murders of Carol Christensen, Cynthia Hides, Marcia Chapman, and Opal Mills. In 3 of the 4, DNA evidence linked Gary to the victims. The one who didn't have the DNA evidence was Cynthia Hines, and her body was discovered within a few feet from the other 2 victims, quote, "leaving no doubt that the same killer was responsible," end quote. And these quotes are also coming from the
prosecutorial summary.
Thank you.
Yes.
That. Yep. Thank you. In April 2002, King County prosecuting attorney gave a written notice that he would be seeking the death penalty. Over the next year, prosecutors and detectives continued to review and investigate the Green River case and sent in hundreds of items to several forensic laboratories for analysis. The King County Superior Court set a charging deadline of March 28, 2003. Just before this deadline, one of the labs found a tiny sphere of sprayed paint on the clothing of 2 uncharged victims, Wendy Caulfield, Coffield, and Deborah Estes.
And Wendy was the first one found, right?
Yep. The paint was identical to a highly specialized paint that was used at the plant where Gary worked. There was a time period in 1982 when in 1 month, 5 women were left in or near the Green River. Wendy Caulfield was the first, and Opal Mills, Cynthia Hines, and Marcia Chapman were the last three. Quote, "It was obvious that the same person who killed these four women had also killed Deborah Bonner, whose body was found in the Green River a few weeks after Wendy and only a few days before Mills, Hines, and Chapman." On March 27th, 3 additional counts of aggravated murder in the first degree were added for Wendy, Deborah, and Deborah. So Deborah Bonner and Deborah Estes. Gary entered pleas of not guilty. There were 42 cases that were still open and uncharged for the Green River cases, and only had little physical or only circumstantial evidence that connected Gary to them.
42?
42, so we've got a total of 49.
Oh, jeez.
So Gary was now facing 7 counts of aggravated first-degree murder. Shortly after his arraignment, Gary's attorney contacted the prosecuting attorney and asked if the prosecutor would forego seeking the death penalty in exchange for a guilty plea to the charged counts and a number of additional cases. He also offered to provide a complete account for his criminal activity in King County and would help investigators find the remains of more of his victims that were yet to be found. On June 13, 2003, King County prosecuting attorney agreed to the exchange. With this contract, Gary had to address the official list of 49 victims and also any other crimes that he committed before 1982 or after 1984. In addition, he would also identify unsolved murders for where he was not responsible. If Gary was not completely truthful, he could face the death penalty for any murders that he did not disclose. In June 2003, the task force began the extensive interviews with Gary. He claimed to have killed over 60 women in King County. He also led police to places where he left bodies and described what had happened there. Gary also identified other dump sites that had not been considered to be part of the Green River killer. In the interviews, Gary was asked about specific homicides, as well as diving into Gary's habits and thoughts related to his killings. Gary admitted that it was difficult to be truthful after being so successful with his deception for so long. Initially, Gary said that he never planned on killing any of his victims, and he killed them in a rage from his encounter with the woman not liking them or not being really enthusiastic or rushing him. Later on, he did acknowledge that that was not entirely true. Once he got the woman to his house, he would have killed her regardless of how she acted. Gary initially also stated he stopped killing in 1985 when he met his current wife, but later on, that changed several times. Gary also denied killing a few who were originally attributed to the Green River killer. Gary made it very clear that he would only claim he killed a woman if he did so. He stated, quote, "You can put her on the list of mine, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to say I killed her because I didn't kill her." He then later stated, quote, "Why if it isn't mine? Because I have pride in what I do and don't want to take it from anybody else." End quote. Gary admitted to committing most of the murders on the official Green River killer list and then 6 unsolved homicides. That is what I have for part 1. The next parts are going to be more of the interviews with Gary, his thoughts on choosing victims, his first victims, how he didn't get caught for so long, and a whole bunch more. There's a lot there.
There is a lot there.
I looked at your face a couple times. I'm like, oh, you're in shock right now.
Well, it's more of I'm
Processing?
processing. I'm choosing my words.
That too.
What?
Isn't that wild?
When you said 60, 60,
6-0.
I was like, that is almost my entire class. Like every single day I sit in class with, I think we're somewhere between 60 to 70 people. I'm like, that entire room's worth.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane to me.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole like, oh, I have integrity about it. I don't want to take it from someone else. I mean, speaking as someone who wants the truth out there, like, yeah,
but
the way
it was
said,
phrased,
it just, okay.
It's gonna be weird. I have a feeling it's gonna get weirder because we're gonna get. I'm assuming, I haven't read them yet, but like I'm assuming we're gonna get like these interviews on like what were you thinking during these and what. So this might get real weirder.
I was supposed to say weirder. Also, who knows what Wednesdays? Honestly, it should just be who knows what weird Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm. We got all the weird here.
That we do.
Mm-hmm.
A specific brand of weird. Twisted? Questionable?
That fits.
I'm sorting through my list of adjectives, and again, I'm just coming back to what? But you know, that's probably a good thing that we're not like, oh yeah, his reasoning makes sense. Like, it's a good thing that we're sitting here not
able to understand a serial killer.
Yeah.
I think it's okay that we don't understand him.
Yeah, I think it's good that we're not like, no, I can't even, no. Okay, well, I am interested to see where this goes.
Me too. Any other thoughts on this before we wrap it up today?
I have so many questions about the relationship with his mother. I have questions for the third wife, Marcia. No, Judith.
Judith was the third wife.
Judith, yes. I have questions. All of it.
How is that okay? Maybe some are okay with. I don't know how you're okay with someone being that involved.
Someone's mother being that involved.
Yeah.
Any parent, really. If I was a guy and I saw a girl whose parent was doing that much for her, like, or her father was doing that much for her, I would be like, no. That's just like, it's such a dependency that, that's just.
Especially like you're out on your own, like you're no longer a teenager, you're no longer a child.
You've been married
several times, and you're still that heavily reliant on your mother to do things.
And again, there's nothing wrong with the situations where people like genuinely cannot take care of themselves without like a guardian or a parent. Like, yeah, that's one thing.
There is that.
That doesn't sound like that's what's happening here.
No.
It's just, it's flags. It's so many red flags.
Mm-hmm. That is another one of our frequent
themes
is interesting relationships with parents. Not good interesting.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, that's no pressure on us when we eventually have kids.
I was just thinking, I was like, no pressure.
No pressure.
Have a good relationship with your child.
Yeah, that's a hard balance to strike between wanting to give them enough autonomy and freedom to make their own choices, but also give them enough discipline so they don't become little rapscallions.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd ask for parenting advice, but Usually what's left in YouTube comments is not great,
Mm-mm.
or any social media comments. So,
Mhm. Well, I'm also looking at it. I'm going to throw my resources in here real quick.
oh, yes.
I have the prosecutor summary from Superior Court of Washington. I have Seattle Times. I have AETV and about.com.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I look forward to episode 2 of this multi-parter.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what's said in those interviews.
I know. I have a feeling like, unfortunately, we can learn a lot, like, especially like psychologically wise. We can learn a lot from someone like this. I hate to say it, but you kind of know I'm right.
Yeah, it kind of feels like retrospect, where you can look at a situation. And well, I mean, that's how we've improved throughout all of humanity. That structure collapsed. Well, now we changed the structure to this. This bridge collapsed. Now we're doing this instead. And like, we learn from mistakes, we learn from bad things. So I agree that we're probably going to learn from this, but
Oof.
it's going to be an oof.
Yeah. Well, we hope you join us for next week for who knows what it's going to turn into.
Yeah.
You and I both currently don't know.
New. We're just along for the ride.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The only one who's in control right now is Bear the cat.
Yeah, he's been running the whole podcast all
day.
All day.
You've been the head of the crew.
He Yep.
Yeah.
He has, and he's back.
Yeah. Did I summon you on that one? I just want to make sure you're not overstimulated and you go chomp on my hand.
I don't know what's up with him today. He's being weird.
It's a weird weather day. Animals in Minnesota are a little bonkers because we're experiencing false spring.
Yeah, I know.
Every year, man.
I know.
For those in the colder climates, you know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to this like month 3-ish, 4 of like true winter time, it's always like, oh, you get a little bit warm. And then I had someone in my class today wearing shorts.
Yeah.
I was going to give him grief, and I missed out on a chance to do that because he's one of my... Anyway, he wore shorts until I think snow was on the ground. No, he had shorts on when snow was on the ground last semester.
We had one of those in my program too. Mm-hmm.
He's determined, I'll give him that. But like, it feels so beautiful and it's nice because you don't get the full allergens that you get in spring yet because it hasn't thawed all the way into the ground. But
It's
then
coming.
then the cold comes back and it's just so much worse. And it's so bad.
Mm-hmm.
If you're lucky, you only have 1 or 2 false springs a winter. We've had like 3 or 4 some winters.
Mm-hmm.
And by the 3rd time, we're just
Over it.
so over it. We're like, oh my God, it's beautiful. Oh, dang it.
Yep. So hopefully this year is good to us.
Fingers crossed. Well, on that note, anything else to add here?
No, is it weird to say I'm excited to see where this goes? I feel weird saying excited in this. I'm a nerd. I like psychology. One of my favorite undergrad classes that I ever took was biopsychology. So that should tell you something about me. I'm a nerd. So
same, about different things, but yes. No, you are eagerly anticipating the academics of the following.
What Connie said.
Clarification, we do not support nor condone committing crimes.
No, we don't.
No, we actively discourage, actually.
We do. I'm just a giant nerd.
No, again, I'm watching math problems to calm me down right now. So, like,
we're both nerds.
We're both nerds. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't know what Connie's talking about, you should go see last week's Wednesday episode where it was kind of a Q&A.
Yeah.
Learn more about us.
We have not come up with a title for that episode yet, but basically it is our 1-year anniversary episode.
Yeah.
It's very chill. It's very lighthearted. It's reminiscing. It's fun. It is no crime.
No crime.
No trigger warnings.
Nope.
Actually, the only trigger warning is Jess and I both had coffee beforehand, and like
So
we're both really swirly, so there's a little more energy.
there was, yeah.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. Well, we will see you either on Saturday for Breaking Dawn or next Wednesday for another episode of Who Knows What Wednesday. And who knows what Bear's doing, so he doesn't know either, clearly.
Well, he did just double click to make sure that I went from normal view to other view that we don't like, and then back into normal view. So
well, there's that.
good job, Bear, Studio Master.
Well, on that note, see you next time.
Adios.
Bye. What is up with you today? Did you get into something?
He just wants to be a part of the everything. Have you been possessed by Ted? Is this Ted's new way?
Ted?